This is May from Polytape. She is the sales, you have to remind me,
Northern South America.
South America for Polytape, which is the new turbo line that we've brought on. You guys have to come in next year. So she'll be teaching today. Okay, lots of hands-on and just lots of fun stuff. Feel free to ask questions, right? Whatever you guys need. And then we have Thomas, who's kind of maybe helping Pete. And they're together both in Polytape, so you'll see both of them.
Thomas will keep you in check.
Yeah, we'll keep each other. And thanks for coming.
He makes you look short.
So I'm so glad you guys are all here. And if you haven't tried it yet, Turbo is wonderful. Has anybody used Turbo yet? Anybody else? Exciting. Okay. I would like to get an idea of kind of what your experience level is, sort of bore you on what I'm going to talk about, and also level. So how many use the heat transfer vinyl right now? Just about everybody. Yeah. Anybody that's just getting into it? Just getting into it. Okay. How many have a heat press? Everybody. Excellent. Okay. And how many use a craft cutter? How many use a regular plotter, like a craft jet? How many use scissors? Yeah! Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about us as a manufacturer, because it's really important for us that you understand that we are a manufacturer, because a lot of the heat transfer material that's out there is not of the same caliber or quality. And that's one of the things that makes us a little bit different. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about heat transfer, good things to remember, things to avoid, and then we're going to do a lot of hands-on. So I love questions. Interrupt me. Doesn't matter, because I think it's more important that you guys drive what we're talking about than I just end up here in lecture. It's fun anyway, right? All right. So, and everybody can see? No problems. Or should you want to turn the light up? Yeah, we'll turn one light.
That's good enough. You're on both.
Whatever's the how's it? You guys tell me. See it's fine, right? Until I walk in front of it. So the name of our company is the Polytape Group, and we are known for our specialty adhesive products. And out of those lines, we do 4 specific lines, but our heat transfer material and our application tapes are probably our 2 most well-known lines, especially here in the United States. And we are the leading manufacturer of heat transfer material in the world. We are located in Germany. That's where the main production plant is. That's where our corporate headquarters are. And we are also in Italy. We have 2 facilities in Italy. The one that we're most interested in today is Polytape Italy, where we cast our polyurethane heat transfer vinyls. So cast is the preferred method for a material such as this, because when you're casting something, there's less stress on the material, you have better memory on it, it is easier to color and pigment, and it wears better, it's more durable. So for us in this product, and also for vinyls too, vinyls like pressure sensitive vinyls. Who does any pressure sensitive vinyl work? Okay. So if you have any questions about any of the jargon that I'm using, please ask. So for heat transfer materials, the fact that we can control our production, it's really important. This is our line in Italy. So all of these materials are produced from liquid polyurethane. We have our own special proprietary recipes for the polyurethane itself. And when I'm talking about polyurethane, that's what you actually see. That's the face film that's here. Okay. We have our own recipes for the adhesive, and in this case, we're going to call it hot melt because it's heat and pressure activated, as opposed to pressure sensitive vinyl, which is pressure like Scotch tape is pressure sensitive, and vinyl is pressure sensitive. So we have to actually activate it with pressure up to 40 cc. stuff when people are applying wiring. This is heat activated and pressure activated with using a heat scratch, or you can use an iron with this particular material. It's much easier if you have a heat press. And what makes us different is a lot of people out there, a lot of the other brands out there do not control their own production. So we're able to be more innovative, we're able to be more responsive to things that are happening in the industry. It's one of the reasons why we developed Turbo. And we're also able to catch issues earlier and to be able to correct for those issues before the material goes out the market. So this is a casting line, and the length of it is hard to judge here. It's very long. It would go from here all the way almost to the middle of that field over there. It would go a little bit further. And in this process, casting paper is coated with polyurethane. And there are there's a coating in here, a coating in here, and a coating in there. So in the process, this isn't just polyurethane, just one color and that's it. There might be an intermediate layer that would help with a blockout property when you're doing maybe a sublimated material where you need that. It also is going to adhere the adhesive in this process too. And all of this is happening in one process. Wet lamination means that you're getting a much better adhesion and lamination between all of these layers. So when our other films might be developed where you run just the polyurethane through first, and then it dries in these ovens between, right? And then you come back and you put that intermediate layer, or it might be an effect too, like a glow in the dark or reflective property. And then after that, you have the adhesive put on. So it's 3 separate runs where each run dries out in between. When you have wet lamination, you have, no matter how even and plain that polyurethane just goes onto the paper, you're still going to have some little hills and valleys between. And if you don't have wet lamination with that next process, with the effect film or the adhesive on that last run, you get little vacancies in that material. And over time, that affects the durability, especially when you think that most film that you've seen, if you've seen already, they're face down on that carrier and they come on that liner. Right, so that's the first layer that goes down on that. So I think it's important to realize that if you have wet lamination, and because we're a manufacturer, we're always looking for the best process and the most innovative process. And because we're a manufacturer, we're able also to control our resources. And our resources are pigments, special materials that we need to make this polyurethane, liners, everything that you can think of, the whole entire process is controlled by us. So we have more control, we have more consistency. So we're able to deliver to market product, it's available product. And we're also able to know in advance, hey, anybody that's worked with special polyester, like a microfiber polyester, or performance polyester, has anybody worked with it before? It's difficult, right? It's fun. Have you used the turbo on it yet?
Not the turbo one yet.
All right, we're going to use that today. But we saw 10 years ago that it was trending, that the industry was trending towards away from just cotton or cotton poly or regular 100% polyester. There's tri-blends, there's spandex, there's Lycra that's added to products, nylons, which we've always had nylons, but nylons are always a special case. Sublimated garments. So we were like, how do we get ahead of that, and how can we develop and introduce a product that you can apply to all of this? And then we're going to talk about turbo in a little bit. So this is our manufacturing facility and our headquarters in Germany. We do our own flag manufacturing in-house. We do our own glitter manufacturing in-house. We do all of our pressure-sensitive adhesives. That's for a different line that we're not going to look today. We have all of our PSA and PET films, which are the liners that the polyurethanes, the heat transfer metals are housed on, the little tack or no tack liners. And all of the automation, packaging, processing happens in Germany. And then it's shipped for our purposes in the United States and North and South America. We have a sales and distribution center in Jacksonville, Florida. So we bring in product just about every week, every couple of weeks, depending, by container that comes from Germany, and we warehouse, convert, and fulfill from that warehouse here. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to wait for it to come to Germany. It's coming from Jacksonville, so it's usually pretty quick that it comes over. Any questions so far or comments? So we are the worldwide leader for textile graphics, and that would be the single color films, single color polyurethanes, printable polyurethanes, effect film like glitter, reflective, holographic. This is where we are. We're all over the place. We're about right here right now, right? And so, beyond the shirts that I have here, textile graphics, apparel decoration has absolutely branched out into a bunch of different substrates. Who has decorated shoes? How about umbrellas? Anybody have anything unique that they've applied heat transfer model to? Know what they've done? Leotards. You've challenged in a leotard? So we're here. Anybody do glass?
Iron on a football for birthday presents kind of thing. So we're like, please don't pop, please don't pop.
And what did you use for the heating element?
We used like one of those little craft,
Yeah.
the other ones,
The little mini
ones.
the little
Yeah.
mini easy press?
Yeah.
Cool. Has anybody used a flat iron yet? Most of the women in the store know what, I hear them know, but guys might not know. I was introduced to a flat iron application here for the first time. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's such a great idea. How come we didn't think about it? So there's a lot, you know, as long as you're innovative and you know what your substrates are and you know what the parameters are that are really important, and that's what we're going to go next and talk about that stuff, then you can kind of play with things as long as you can stay within those parameters. And the parameters are really, really important. So, what is the most important element in heat transfer? And what do we think? Right? What are you decorating? I think that that's the bottom line in what you're doing. Okay, are you doing something that has any spandex in it? Is it 100% spandex? Are you doing a 100% cotton t-shirt? Are you doing a cotton poly blend? Maybe you're doing a sublimated polyester shirt. And anybody need for me to explain what sublimated? I'm happy to do it. Sublimated means? Everybody knows what, okay. We're going to try to make it just real basic. So sublimation in our application is a pigmenting process. It's how they would dye the material. And it starts out as white or light, but preferably white polyester, and the inks are transferred. They're either printed directly onto the textile, or they're transferred with the transfer paper that's printed first, and then mirror image, and it's applied or infused into the material with heat and low pressure. So, polyester, the best analogy that I have, or maybe the explanation, is that polyester, when it's heated, it opens up. So it's like all these tiny little windows opening up in the polyester. And then the heat goes, the ink, goes from a solid state, because it was liquid, now it's solid because it's been printed. And it goes from a solid state to a gaseous state. And in that gaseous state, it actually goes through those open windows in the polyester. So now it's infused with polyester, color the polyester. Normally it'll color just that area, it gets a little bit of bleed. And then when the polyester cools down, all those little windows close. So now you have a very well dyed garment, and it is extremely durable to wash and dry. It's a really good method and a pretty inexpensive method and way to either personalize or decorate substrates. However, if you go to decorate it now with a heat transfer material, you're heating up that polyester again. So the polyester is going to open, and those inks are going to sublimate, which means that they go from that solid state to a gaseous state again, and they can dye your heat press. They can go through the vinyl that you're applying to it, because it's just going to migrate right through it. So if you can have a material such as the turbo that you can put onto a sublimated garment that you can apply at a lighter pressure and a lower temperature than that sublimation temperature, which is about 400 degrees, you can bypass that issue. It doesn't always work, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but sublimated garments are everywhere. They're football, soccer, basketball jerseys, right? There's socks. Socks are probably one of the most popular sublimated garment out there. You don't even realize it. All those really cool, funky socks, people have sock game, that's what those are. And to personalize something like that, you would need not just a material that you would either have a lockout property in it to prevent that dye migration, or something that would apply at lower rate, lower temperature, but you need something that's really stretchy too, because they're socks, right? Polyester is pretty stretchy in itself. So, what am I going to say? Nylon. Who's tried to work with nylon? Nylon's very difficult. So nylon in itself, without being treated in any way for water repellent properties or maybe antimicrobial properties, which would prevent some of the tents and stuff that you see outside, like the tents that you would use for promotional if you go to a football game or something. If they're not treated, they can grow mold when they're not being used, when they're all folded up and everything. So they're treated like that. And nylon, when you work with it, is a special animal in itself. We don't have any nylon, but we're going to talk about nylon. What else? And I think that the biggest issue that people run into is polyester and nylon that's been treated with what they call a DWR, durable water repellent. And that is very, very difficult to adhere to. And the best thing that you can do, the easiest way, because if you call the people that you got the garments from, maybe they'll know, maybe they won't know. Even the mills sometimes may or may not know whether something's treated. There's an easy test that you can perform. You can take that substrate, whatever it is, and you put a few drops of water on it. And if the water stays there and beads up like it would on a waxed car, then it probably has some kind of treatment in it. If it soaks right into that substrate, then it probably isn't treated. But if it beads up like that, you'd have to test the application. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Any questions on that? Does that make sense? It's a good sheet to use. Okay. So we kind of talked about sublimated polyester a little bit. I'd say that polyester itself, 100% polyester, is a good workhorse. You can apply it at traditional temperatures of 320 degrees. You may get a little bit of variance in the color that's temporary when it's heated, like especially the reds and the blacks, because they're two volatile ink colors. And you can treat it like a cotton. Same thing with cotton poly. Cotton poly is about the same. When you start getting into a tri-blend, which is a cotton, polyester, and rayon material, then you want to start looking for something that you can bring that temperature down in, right? And what performance polyester, or also known as microfiber, I'm going to pass this around so you can feel it. Okay. This is a regular polyester. So when you feel it, you kind of squeeze it. And then this, you can feel the variance in it. This is fluffy, for lack of a better word, because the way that this is woven, and you can even see it on the, that's called Cooltex for this, it's like a dry wick. You can see what the layers are in there, the way that it's woven. It's different than this. So this would still withstand the heat, but with the heat, the pressure, and the time, and it's the pressure more than anything else, if you press this under traditional 320, 15 seconds, medium to medium high pressure, it's going to leave a press mark that will never come out. So in order to avoid doing that, you need a material that is lower time, lower temperature, and lower pressure. And that's what turbo is. And then also when it's going around, feel that turbo that's on the fluorescent, the neon orange shirt. It feels really good. All right, let's see. The only other way that you're really going to know whether or not it's a performance fiber, performance polyester, without knowing it's dry wig or it's Under Armour, Nike Dry Fit, all of those are performance polyesters, is to maybe you'll be able to feel it, or what I suggest you do is just treat them all like they're performance polyesters. Because if you have a material that works on cotton and regular polyester and sublimated polyester and performance polyester and nylon and leather and Gore-Tex and neoprene and spandex, lycra, PVC, which we'll call pleather, then you might as well treat your polyesters, instead of burning them or press marking them, scorching them, like they are microfibers, like they are divas. Makes sense? So nylon. We're going to talk about nylon only because I don't have any to press. With nylon, you need to do this test. And here's a good illustration of that water test. See how it's all beating up on that? You kind of see that? Yeah. With nylon, if it doesn't have a treatment for durable water repellent, then you can, most likely, you'll be able to decorate it. Nylon shrinks when it is heated up. So if you went to apply the transfer to the nylon without heating it up, you wouldn't get a good adhesion. It might stay for a little bit, but over time, it's going to separate. You might have the little corners pull up on the design, or it might just fall right off. So nylon requires a 5-second preheat, and that's on. It'll be on the back of your cards here too. Nylon. Then it's a 10-second dwell time. So you put the transfer on for 10 seconds. You peel it off, and then you do a post-press for 5 seconds. And you want to peel that transfer off warm. The reason why you want to peel the transfer off warm is so that you have less resistance and less aggression when you're pulling it off. Because the more solid the adhesive gets, the more aggressive, and the colder the transfer gets, the more aggressive the liner adhesives. You get it? 5-second preheat, 10-second dwell time. Remove that liner off. You may have to be a little bit careful. You might get some edges that will lift, but that's okay. Just hold them down. Hold the little edges down when you're releasing it. And I would suggest also that you cover that substrate, because there might be a zipper. The nylon itself might be sensitive. So you cover it with either parchment or a Teflon sheet, anything like that, siliconized paper, to protect the rest of the surface, not to protect the transfer itself, not to protect this material, but to protect the rest of it. And then it's a 5-second post-press and it's done. And you should be able to tell once it's cooled off. Take a fingernail or take a squeegee and try to lift up the edges. If you get a little bit of lift, press it again. So that's not right. Any questions on nylon, or anybody have any specific issues that they've encountered that they want to talk about?
I have a quick question. So on garments like the shirts you passed around, on some shirts that I've done, I've used a different brand that's a stretch before this came out. How well will this stretch?
Really well. Have you seen the shirt come by yet?
It did, and I was afraid
Pass it back.
it'll, like, pull it.
Pass it back.
Because that was one of my biggest questions. I
Instructions.
haven't put it on athletic apparel because I was like, oh, it's going to be stretched. Is it going to
Yeah,
stretch the
because
design?
I do that for my daughter's gymnastic Leos, and I'm like, sweet, so I went and got the extra stretch because of that, but I hate working with it sometimes because it's very, for the ones I did, was like, I'm not doing it. I mean, I did do it, but.
So what was it that was?
When I did it,
was the lead?
it was the weed. When I was taking, I had put it on the thing, and everything else that I'd done, when I cut it, it was like, just fine. It's like, okay. Then it's like, come on, please, you know, because then I would cut, and you know how we get that peripheral edge, like it would skip.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, because then I had to go and get the knife and recut those edges so I can weed it, so that it would go on the thing, and then like, then we're good.
So how many have had that? Come on, please, experience. And I don't believe you if you say you've never had it.
No, I'm
right?
it's
Okay.
for a couple of things. I'm just like,
Yeah.
please. I'm like,
There's still going to be the instances that you're going to have that
right.
because not everything can be decorated. There's different levels of quality and sublimation. You can call nylon, but nylon is not a trademarked single usage name. So it can be a great blend, it could be a good weave, a good product, good quality, or it can be not so good. Same thing with sublimated products. And sublimated products are really tricky because you can apply it, everything looks great. 2 days later, it's still fine. You know, you have a red and black striped jersey that you're decorating to. You have white polyurethane heat transfer material that you put on it. Looks great. 2 weeks later, it's starting to bleed. So now you have pink and gray instead of, if it's red and black underneath, you have pink and gray striped application on there. So it's tricky. You know, our material, the turbo doesn't work on every single sublimated polyester, but it works on most of them. And there are other products that you can use that have an actual intermediate blockout layer that prevent the migration of the ink from that sublimated jersey to the face film that you see that's on this. This is face film here. So it's great, and it works great, but it doesn't have that same feel. And that on that particular shirt, that weave, how does that turbo feel?
It feels good.
It's really soft, right?
Well, it's like I used a different material, the one I've always used, the stretch, and it came right off of the old jerseys.
Did it?
One more, but I had to, it was a nylon, so I had to keep repressing it to get it, because you have to have that pressure, but it was starting to melt the jersey because of the material. And so I ripped them all off, and I'm anxious to try those.
Good. We'll give you a piece to take home. So one thing about, that's a trick too that maybe some of you know and some of you don't. In the milling process, in the textile weaving process, a lot of the times there'll be chemicals that are used. Most of the times it's just something like a wax that single thread is coated with, right? Something that's in the process of when they make the threads. So that in that process of how fast, if you've ever seen if you've ever been to a mill or even seen an embroidery machine, you see how fast those things move. And to facilitate the weave process, they'll coat it with wax. So that wax stays there. That wax stays there until after you wash. Do a couple washes before that wax comes off. There's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't hurt you, but it can prohibit a good adhesion for the hot melt in these cases. And a simple fix for it, in most cases, is to use an isopropyl alcohol and to clean the area that you are going to be applying to. Now, always test first. Test for fastness of the dye, so do it underneath a seam or something like that, or do it on a piece that's your sample anyway. And so you don't see, so it doesn't ruin it, so it doesn't make the ink light or black or anything like that. And then let that alcohol dry completely before you put it under the heat press. But that should prevent the issues with it falling right off. If something falls right off of a garment, It's either not enough time and not enough pressure, not enough heat. Heat's usually the easiest to control. Time, if you're setting it, you time it right. But I think the biggest loser in the equation is pressure. I get calls all the time, or people ask me, what's the temperature you're applying at and what's the time? I'm like, well, what else do you want to ask me? You know, how many of you pay attention to pressure? It's okay if you don't, but now you need to. Pressure is part of that holy trinity of the parameters. There's no other parameters really that we're going to give you. Maybe the parameter will be how to peel the liner off, hot, warm, cold, or universal, hot, warm, or cold. And it's time, it's temperature, and it's pressure. Pressure is important. And even if you're ironing on with a household iron or a mini press, a craft press, something that doesn't have the two plattens that come together where you can adjust your pressure and get that good, solid, uninterrupted pressure, you still need to put good pressure on. So if you're using an iron, a solid surface, and right straight down, put pressure on it. As much pressure on it as you can, because it's probably not going to hurt it. It might hurt the substrate, but if you're decorating with a household iron, probably something that you can not worry about burning. So, if you have a nylon that does have a durable water repellent in it, there are other products that you can use that have very, very aggressive adhesives in them. So there are options for it. But I'd say out of all the materials, nylon's most finicky. All right, so let's talk about it. So, we talked about all of these materials. Why did we develop turbo when there's so much out there? 15 seconds, 320 degrees, medium pressure, no big deal, right? It works. Our product's been around since 1993. It's gone through lots of innovations and changes. It's a premium product. It's what's called premium. It's great. The film is perfect. It's extremely opaque. It's 100% matte. It's durable. Take 100 washes, we test for 25, it's 25 is the industry standard, but people would say, oh, how bored that, it outlasted the garment. I haven't done that yet. I haven't been able to do that yet. So, because of all this, you need, say you carry something for performance polyester, then you carry a different material for nylon, then you carry a different material for sublimated material, then you carry something for cotton. It's 4 different materials, 4 different SKUs that you have to carry. No big deal for white and black, which are 90% of what we decorate anyway. But what about aqua, military green, lavender? I wouldn't want to carry 4 different types of material for those colors. But if you still want to offer it, and still want to be able to decorate with it, I like those options. I don't know about you guys, but I like options, and I think options make it easier for us, especially for layering stuff. It's kind of fun, right? White and black looks great together, but throw some, hot pink on there. It's really good. So, what's the difference? What's so special about turbo? You all know by now that, because I've said it at least probably 20 times, cotton poly, polyester, nylon. But then it can also be applied to leather, and it can be applied to canvas. It can be applied to Gore-Tex. Does anybody do any goggles or gloves or anything like that? Any decorating? Look at that? No? Fleece, spandex, lycra. Lycra's funny. You have to test for lycra, and you also, it can be a different process. If you are having a hard time getting the material to stick to lycra, especially if they're, say it's some lycra leggings, like for somebody's spin class or something, you can get a lot of activity right here when it's spin. I would do the same, kind of the same application parameters as that nylon. Preheat it, then let it, put the transfer on there with the liner on there, let it go for about 3 to 5 seconds, peel it off warm, cover it, and then go for a full 10 seconds on that post press, and that'll probably help you on that. And as soon as you let the material cool down, activate it a little bit, stretch it a little bit, and then apply it one more time. That should work. Okay, so get a little activity in there. But after that, Yeah, once that adhesive is in the material, it doesn't matter how many times you go back to the heat press after that. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but most likely that adhesive is as far in and as connected as it's going to be with that material. So if you can't get it to stick after that, I would say you have to try something else for that. Okay. So, what else? 265 degrees. That's the low end temperature of application for the turbo. So it's traditionally 320 degrees, 15 seconds. This is a 260 degrees for 5 seconds. It's a 5-second application, except for nylon. That's all it takes, 5 seconds. Yep. It does. And, 5 seconds isn't such a big deal, but it is a big deal if you're doing some production, right? And, let's see, the next one. 3 seconds, application time if it's 320 degrees. 3 seconds. When I first started working with it and had the automated timer on the press, it scared me every time it came up. So I wasn't used to it. I was used to a 15-second application. 3 seconds. It's nothing. When you guys come up here, this one's set at 265 for 5 seconds, that one's set for 320 for 3 seconds. It's really quick. I mean, you close it and it's already on 2 seconds, 1 second, it's done. So, what if you're doing...
Why do you have 2 different times?
Because of the temperature.
No, I know that, but why do you recommend 2 different, why not just say,
It depends.
what?
Well, if you were doing cotton, right, just cotton, and that's all you were running at, you could still put it at 265 and apply it for 5 seconds. But if you wanted to increase your production time, you could put it at 320 degrees, or maybe if you had fleece, I would do fleece at the 320 because of the fact that it's a thicker material. But you could still do it at 265. You're going to get a faster adhesion. And the thing is also with this, the liner that's on it is hot, warm, or cold removal. It doesn't matter. So if you're doing a bunch of shirts, you don't have to wait for it to cool down and then get to the perfect lukewarm temperature before you pull that liner off. You can either pull it right off right then and there and it's going to stick, or you can let them pile up and pull them all off cold. I like to do it warm because it's the easiest way to remove it. But if you're doing, say you're doing somebody's little golf tournament, right? So they have performance jerseys, they have a bunch of polos, which are probably going to be 100% cotton, maybe 50-50. They're doing some giveaways, like some rain jackets or some umbrellas, things like that. Instead of doing all the cotton first at 320 and then all the rest of it at 265, you still have that ability to work at 265 for 5 seconds. So you can do everything. You don't have to wait for the press to heat up, wait for the press to cool down, or you just use 2 different presses. We use 2 different presses for time, so you can see both. So you don't have to wait. You can do it either way. So that's a good question. Right? Did you want to add to it? No? Good? You haven't forgotten anything? Not yet. So the film, as you've seen, it's really nice. It's 90 micron. It's very thin. It's a little bit, it's not too thin though. So you still get some really good opacity and durability on it. It's easy to weed. It's easy to apply. Easy to cut. Now we have 40 colors, which are all on here to look at. Great stretch properties. And then this Oeko-Tex standard, standard 100 class 1, is CIPSA compliant. So does anybody have to work with CIPSA? Pretty much? No? And the wash and drying temperature, it can be washed, it can be dried in the dryer, it can be dry cleaned. And our recommendation is no more than 60 degrees, and that's 60 degrees Celsius. And I don't translate that because most of your wearables they're all in Celsius, all those temperatures are in Celsius. But that's about 90 degrees in Fahrenheit. Yeah. And it's on a tacky back liner.